So one of the questions I often get asked is, like, what is coaching? What makes coaching different? Because there's different kinds of things you could do. You could do, number one, you could do therapy. You could do counseling. You could do consulting. You can do training. You can do mentoring. So what makes coaching different? And coaching is none of those things, by the way. Coaching is not advising people. Coaching is not trying to give people a solution to their problems. Coaching is not it's not about fixing people. Coaching is not mentoring. Coaching is not about inspiring other people. In fact, coaching has very little to do with us. In one sense, it has not very much to do with us. And in one sense, it has everything to do with us. But actually, what coaching is about bringing out the expertise in the other person, right? So one of the things I sometimes hear people say about coaching is one of the most important things you need to qualities you need to have as a coach is curiosity. I actually disagree with that personally, because I don't think your curiosity is that important. This is in the normal world. When you ask a question, we're normally asking questions because I'm curious, because I want to know what's happening. In coaching, we don't need to know what's happening. The reason why we ask questions as a coach is so the client can hear their own truth. That's why we ask questions. Not because I need to hear what they're sharing with me, not because I need to know what their goals and mission is, because I don't. They need to tune in to a different level of thinking that they're not used to thinking at. So I like to kind of describe it this way as well. If you ask the client a question that they already know the answer to, there's very little value in that question. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, if I ask you, what's your name? What's your address? Like, you already know what your name is. You already know what your address is. So there is no value in that question for you because you know the answer. So there's a very big difference between normal questions and coaching questions. Coaching questions are the questions that allow the client to get a deeper level of self-awareness, a deeper level of understanding of themselves that they didn't know before the question was asked. That's what powerful questions are. So what a powerful question does, it basically allows the client to go within themselves to understand a little bit more about what is closer to their truth. So when we're asking questions to the client, sometimes we ask questions about things like their beliefs or their values, or what does that value actually mean to them? How would they define that? And that's something that they've never ever thought about before. So for example, if I was to ask you, what's your top 3 values? And you may say love, honesty, integrity, or something like that, right? And then I ask you, so when you say integrity, what do you actually mean by that? Probably no one's asked you that question before. So now you have to think, it is my core value, but what does it actually mean? Well, integrity means, never thought about that before. And what that is actually doing, it's helping you to get a deeper level of self-awareness. Saying things about beliefs as well. So for example, you may believe that no one is going to hire you as a coach. Like, who's going to pay me as a coach? Like, in fact, when I first took up coaching, I used to have that belief. I used to think, I really want to be a coach, but who's going to pay me for coaching? And I used to hear about all these coaches making all this money and getting paid like $5,000 an hour. And I was thinking, that's ridiculous, right? I thought no one's ever going to pay me that. And that was a belief that I had. Right? That was a belief that, so we've all got these different beliefs that we don't even question. So when it comes to your belief about coaching, what do you actually believe? And is that belief actually true? Where's this belief coming from? So when you ask questions like that, what you're actually doing is you're actually helping the client to go within themselves to explore the deeper levels of their subconscious. And in that way, they actually get an insight. Let me do a little exercise with you right now, just to show you that real transformation actually happens through self-awareness. Like sometimes we think in order to create a deep transformation, you have to do something amazing, and it needs to be something kind of miraculous. Actually, the truth is a lot simpler. Transformation comes from deeper levels of self-awareness. Let me give you an example. Okay, I'm gonna do a little test with you. Okay, and I just want you to follow along with me. So if you're watching this video right now, just trust me and just follow me. What I want you to do is, I don't want you to change anything, but I just want you to be aware of your breathing. Just notice it, and don't change it, but just notice your breathing. Notice as you're breathing in, and notice as you're breathing out. And just bring your presence and your awareness to it without judgment. And just notice the in-breath. And just notice the out-breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and out. Now let me ask you a question. I did not ask you to change your breathing. All I ask you to do is become aware of it and don't change it. But what happens when you become aware of something? Automatically it starts to shift. So in the same way, when we actually become aware of the beliefs that we're having, where they came from and what they actually mean, it actually creates a shift. So one of the back to the original questions, like, why do we ask questions as a coach? We ask questions as a coach so the client can get deeper levels of self-awareness and they can hear their own truth. So when we ask the questions, powerful, deep questions, then the client goes in and they start to think about it. And a lot of the things the client says in the beginning are incoherent. They're kind of processing the question. They're kind of exploring it. And very often you'll find that the first answers to the question are not really the answers. They're just them kind of looking inside and thinking, could be this, could be this. And through this process of questioning, they actually get this amazing insight and aha moment. And that's one of the reasons why we ask questions. And again, I'm going to say this again, because repetition is the mother of learning, right? We don't ask questions as a coach because we need to know. We ask questions as a coach because the client needs to hear their own truth. And powerful coaches, expert coaches, know how to ask exactly the right question that the client needs asking. They are aware of where the client is getting stuck. And also they help the client to become aware of where they're getting stuck. And in that process, the expert coach knows exactly what questions to ask that bring out that self-awareness within the client. And that's called coaching mastery. One of the most important things while we're asking coaching questions is giving the client lots of space and lots of silence to think. Not filling the vacuum, but allowing the client to have a vacuum that they can fill. If you look at most conversations, what happens is we're just waiting for the other person to stop speaking so we can say what we want to say. That's the opposite of coaching. In coaching, the client is doing 80% of the talking, or maybe even 90% of the talking. The client is doing all of the thinking, and the coach is not really doing much work at all. The coach is allowing the client to do the work, allowing the client to do the thinking. The client does not need to borrow our thoughts or our opinions. The client needs to understand their own thoughts and opinions and find their own authenticity and their own answers. And sometimes people think, well, because there's different kinds of questions, by the way. So here's a question for you. Well, what if the client doesn't know how to do something? And you're asking them, what should they do? Then that's different. That's a different kind of coaching. When the client doesn't know how to do something and they need to get a new skill, then your questions are going to be around that. What is it you would need to learn in order to do this really, really well? What is lacking in terms of your capability that you need to develop in order to get the result that you're looking for? So there's different kinds of questions. There's capabilities questions. There's identity questions. Who are you? There's beliefs and stories questions like, what you believe is true, or what stories are you telling yourself about the world and the things around you. Then there's values questions like what's really important to you. Then there's capabilities questions like what skills do we have? What skills do we need? Then there's behavior questions, and then there's, environment questions. So there's so many different categories of questions that we can ask, right? Self-awareness questions, strategy questions, action questions. The master coach knows exactly what questions to ask at the right time and when, right? And that's what separates a master coach from like an average coach. Is a master coach is able to give that space for the client to really go within themselves to find those insights. And the master coach is really expert at helping the client to on the journey that they already want to go on. Another thing we need to remember when we're coaching as well is it's not about the coach's agenda. It's always about the client's agenda. Like, what is it that they want? What is the result? What is the outcome that they would love to have by the end of this session or by the end of this coaching journey that we're going on? And the most important thing that a coach can give to the client is their unconditional presence, where they're 100% fully there with the client, supporting the client on the client's goals, dreams, and basically where they want to go, and holding that space. That's the most important thing that the coach is bringing to this relationship with the client, and holding that safe space where the client feels safe, where the client can open up and share their truth, knowing that I will never be judged by my coach, that my coach is here to support me, hold a sacred space for me, and that this person is actually there for my highest welfare. What a gift coaching is when it's done really well to another human being. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time another human being held a sacred space for you where you could share the most important things that mean the most to you in your life without judging you, in an unconditional, loving, supportive way, just to really support you on your journey? When was the last time someone gave you 100% of their attention just for you and for your goals, or your dreams, or your dilemma that you need to overcome? When was the last time someone actually gave you that 100% of their attention just for you? Think about it. Probably, I've spoken to some people and said, no one's ever done that for me, right? Or maybe it happens, but it's very, very rare. And that's what coaching is. Coaching is you holding a sacred space for another human being where they can share the most important things that they want to share with you in a way that they can explore and go deeper into their own self-awareness, so they can start to get closer to their truth, and they can find real alignment about what is really the most important thing in their lives. And that's what coaching does, and that's the beauty of coaching. And if you haven't experienced that yet, then I invite you to actually really get coached by a master coach. It will actually transform your life. I would say that coaching, when it's done really, really well, is the best investment that you can ever make, because there's so many things that you can spend your money on. You can spend your money on a computer. You can spend your money on a fancy car and a nice watch, a beautiful shirt, nice wallpaper. You can buy so many different things with your money. But the most precious thing that you could ever spend your money on is your true growth and your true development, so you can become the best version of yourself. That's the best investment you can ever make. And when you invest in a powerful coach, a master coach who can help you to really, really get that level awareness, it's truly transformational. So I've shared a few thoughts about coaching today. I hope this was useful for you. If you want to know more about coaching and you would love to, maybe even become a master coach or step into coaching, I invite you to, underneath this video, you'll see there's a link there. We have an orientation that you can attend for free, where we talk all about coaching and everything like that. We do that almost every week in a live session, and you can come on there, you can ask me questions, you can find out more about coaching. So I'd like to invite you to this orientation that we do. Just go there below. Or if you're ready to become a coach, you can also find some links there too. And if not, that's totally fine as well. Until next time, I will see you very soon.